What's up, 444? We are back with the DFS MVP podcast for week 3. We are going to switch things up a little bit this week. We're going to do a game-by-game breakdown. Instead of doing position by position like we did last week, we're going to stay on task this week, just going game by game, breaking it all down. Hopefully get it done, little over an hour is kind of the goal here. We'll see if we're able to do this in that short of a time frame. But we're going to do our best here. I'm your host, Neil Orfield at PlayerQDFS on Twitter. I'm here with Davis Maddock at Davis Maddock on Twitter and Pat Corain at Pat Corain on Twitter. You know these familiar faces. You recognize them, of course, from the graphic for this show. We all look exactly like our pictures.
So I had my brother text me, and I was like on a pod this morning, and I just get a text from my brother that's, can we curse on here? I don't know.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
So he just goes, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Oh God, like what happened? Like what's going on?" And so I click, because that's all that shows up. I click in, and it's the picture. It's a picture of us.
He didn't agree with it.
No, it's all he gave me. I was like, "Is something wrong?"
I feel like yours probably looks the most like you of any of them.
No,
I don't
mine
know.
looks the least like me.
Maybe
I
right.
look like I'm 12 years
Actually,
old in this thing.
Maybe I think mine probably looks the most like me if I were just like a little bit younger. Like
yours looks the most like you. It looks most, I think, like Dwayne McFarland.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. No, I think I said Graham Barfield, but maybe it's like
maybe more like Graham. Yeah, there's a mix. It's a mix.
There's somebody
of
in the
Graham
history.
and Dwayne. I think
Somebody else said Matt Harmon could be
Matt
my graphic looks sort of like Matt.
Yeah,
yeah.
I see
and then
that.
Also, what's the name of the guy from Clerks and everything?
Jay and Silent Bob.
Kevin Smith.
Oh,
Kevin
Smith.
Kevin Smith. Yeah, Kevin. There's some Kevin Smith in there, but like there is a little piece of you in there, Neil.
Yeah.
It's mixed with like 5 other dudes, but right. I don't know who this guy. I mean, this is
you just look like a 15-year-old. Yeah,
this
boy.
is a child with curly hair.
And Davis, like he has the long hair and the mustache, but he's like dark-haired. I don't know. It doesn't really look like Davis.
He somehow looks tall.
He does.
Somehow he looks tall.
I get that vibe.
So that's
too.
wrong. Yeah.
He looks very tall. Yeah.
I've learned over the course of doing shows, I've learned that people aren't nearly like the height that you expect them to be. Like, I mean, some people, like I look at you guys and I think just looking at you, I think I would assume that maybe I wouldn't. I know that Pat is taller than Davis. Maybe I wouldn't have assumed that. I guess I already know that. So maybe that's my
you wouldn't assume just from a YouTube video. I mean, Pat's taller than me. He's not like a giant compared to me.
Yeah.
No,
me compared to Peter, that is
Pete's
quite
tall.
a difference.
Gretch is tall too.
Gretch is tall too.
Those guys are so tall that people were calling me a short king when I was out in Vegas. Like I'm average height. I'm next to Gretch and Pete. Yeah.
Fucking tall guys, just so annoying. You never want to stand next to them. Never stand by tall guys. Yeah. All right, we'll go game by game. But let's start with a quick recap of last week. Davis, how did things go for you in DFS sports betting? Whatever you did last week.
My sim ROI was really good. My
nice.
sim ROI of my lineups was like really good. One of the best post-contest sim ROIs I've ever had. Actual ROI, not so strong. I basically just needed the Rams to stay competitive because I did have a bunch of. I think I made 5 teams and 2 of them were Kyler and Marv. So
nice. You were all over the Marv call last week.
But the Rams didn't score enough points. So like Tyler Johnson 0, Colby Parkinson 0, Kyron. Classic Kyron suck out does get the 15. I played 100. I wondered, did you guys play 100% Mason? I played Mason on every team.
I think I had 60%.
I was at 100. It was on my best lineup, but I did not play Kamara, which is
so I had a Kamara Marvin Harrison Jr. and I'm not rich, which it doesn't feel that good. Yeah.
I think we all fell for the same Rams draft.
You'd be coming off $1 million win, I think. From
sickening. Yeah, sickening.
That is tough. Pat, how about you? How did things go for you last week?
I didn't. It wasn't a great week. I had one Daniel Jones lineup that did pretty well, but I had Breece Hall in there. It wasn't letting me put Kamara in at the end of the day for some reason. But yeah, no, it was a double with Wandale and Neighbors, and that got me some of my money back. But otherwise, I ran 5 lineups last week. That was the only one that cashed.
I think I had like 8% Kamara, but they were only in Dak, CD as a bring back. So like in Cowboys, Dak as a bring back, and of course Dak and CD didn't do anything, so that didn't really help.
That's
all
That's what
that
happened.
much.
That's what happened to me too, which is literally the Sims literally tell you stop doing that. Like the number one thing I've learned from the Sims is like stop doing shitty projected lineups just because they're all in the same game. Now this week is I'm gonna IKB again because there are some really good games this week.
Yeah.
But it literally, I would say the number one thing Sims have taught us is the bring back stuff went too far. It used to be exploitable because no one was doing it. Now it's almost the base way that people build, which means you're not even really gaining a correlation edge because for example, this week, the instances of an Olave lineup, the instance of an Eagles lineup is going to be like 10x an Eagle likelihood. Like Barkley, Olave, going to be whatever their individual ownerships are, their combinatorial ownership will be so much higher than what it would be if it was random.
So it takes away that edge of the tail outcomes that you're hoping for. It's like, well, if everybody's getting that same tail outcome, that is kind of an interesting factor. The field kind of leveling up. I mean, at this point, 2024 DFS, like everybody is just constantly leveling up. You need to stay ahead of what the field is trying to do. And Davis, very much with you on the Rams letting me down. I was so excited. The first half of that game with the Cardinals going off, it was like, this is setting up so beautifully for the Rams.
50 Stafford passing attempts.
Yeah,
Cup's going to have 13 catches.
Yep.
Brutal.
That was a tough game. All right. Well, we are going to go game by game, as I have said 5 times already. We're going to go by game by game through my article. So I'm going to go in the order of the article that I published on 4 for 4 earlier. So if you're at your computer, if you want to pull it up, you can. You don't need to. We're gonna tell you what the games we are on are. But we're gonna start here with the Bears at the Colts. This game has a 43.5 total. I have not updated this. I ran these numbers last night looking at the totals and the implied team totals. I'm sure things shift a little bit, but as of last night, the Bears implied team total of 21 points, the Colts implied team total of 22.5. And I'll open it up to you guys. Davis, we can start with you. Anybody stand out to you in this game that you're interested in playing this week?
Yeah, DJ Moore is the one. Keenan Allen is out. Roma Dunze, work in progress. Roma Dunze, I think, and we're back to where we began. DJ Moore, him trying to overcome either poor quarterback play, poor offensive coordinator scheme. The Colts have a very bad secondary. As Jacob, every time I talk to Jacob Sanderson, he's just like saying the name Juju Brents to me. I'm like, I don't know who that is, but he's probably a bad Colts defender.
Jacob seems upset about it.
Jacob does seem upset about it. I've seen a lot of scuttlebutt about Swift. Can't get on the DeAndre Swift train. There's
no.
It's like in an infinite universe, sure, maybe he ends up being a play, but there are just so many good running back plays this week that I don't think you go there. Same deal with Taylor too. It's like, so the Taylor receiving work is not there. And interestingly enough, the Colts beat writers asked him about it this week, about literally not playing a 4th down snap. And they're like, and basically Taylor was like, yeah, dude, I'm not good at it. I'm not good. I'm not good at, like, I have no issue with the coaches putting Tyler Goodson in. I don't think, is it Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson, right? The old Iowa guy.
Sounds right.
Yeah. He basically was like, yeah, they're better at that. They're better at the 2-minute drill. They're better at that stuff than I am. Now, it doesn't mean that the Colts can't just push the ball. Like, no one's going to be shocked if Anthony Richardson but one or the other is optimal this week because they're both really good players and they should be able to run downhill all game. But I'm not really interested in anyone there.
Okay. And Pat, anybody for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Moore jumps out as the interesting guy. I think first of all, I mean, should we have viewed it as a red flag for Caleb Williams' outlook that DJ Moore is going to have him as his quarterback, because this guy's never had a good quarterback.
He's never had a good quarterback. We were so excited. We were so excited, and we were wrong.
But I did this whole deep dive in my article, the walkthrough, this week, and it was interesting to see that Caleb Williams is really struggling with negative plays, especially for us, like sacks, interceptions, but also like throwaways, sucking potential targets out of the offense. Those plays occurring when he still has not come off his first read on the play. This is something I highlighted last year with Sam Howell kind of having a similar issue. And obviously they're very different types of players. Howell's hanging in the pocket. Williams is kind of scrambling around and everything. But there's an issue where the offense isn't executing as designed. Williams is actually being like pretty patient in trying that design, trying to let that design play out, and then it's not happening. So that, I think, does create upside for whoever the plays are designed to go to if the offense starts clicking a little bit more. And you look at DJ Moore, he has a 22% targets per route run, which is solid, but he only has a 10% first read target rate, which is not good. That's the same as Roma Dunze, but Roma Dunze only has a 10% targets per route run overall. So my thinking is that Moore is probably, supposed to get more of these targets, but the offense is basically struggling, and they're, if they were to click more, he is probably the upside way to play. Do I think the offense clicks more this week? Probably not. I don't. The Colts have decent pass rush, but to Davis's point, there is some upside here with them allowing some explosive plays. They have actually been pretty poor to first reads. It's a really small sample, but we also can kind of just bet on maybe Caleb Williams kind of turning more into the guy that we thought he would be. I noted as well that CJ Stroud's efficiency wasn't a whole lot better through 2 games last year, so we don't need to panic on Williams. But it's a bit of a leap of faith with Moore, but when I think that you could justify taking.
Okay. Yeah, so you're both very in on DJ Moore, or somewhat in on DJ Moore. Roma Dunze to me is like a solid GPP play, just at 4,200. It is notable that I think this is by far the weakest defense they've faced. Like the Titans and the Texans, in my opinion, both could end up as like top 10 defenses this year. So I think it's been sort of compounded. He's a rookie coming in, 2 tough defenses right away. I feel like this could be a get right spot for Caleb Williams. I don't think I'm playing it through Caleb himself, but I'm with you. I'm with you both on DJ Moore, but I also really like Roma Dunze at 4,200. We saw the route participation jump to 83.2% last week. I think, in a get right spot at 4,200 at projected low ownership, I'm pretty interested in Roma Dunze in large field tournaments at the very least. I go back and forth on Swift because I'm out on Swift as a player. Like, didn't draft him in best ball. Not really a Swift fan, but at least I don't know if you could call this notable, but the Colts have given up the most rushing yards in the NFL so far this year. I think just to running backs. I don't know if that's overall, but regardless, I think like the fact that they've been so bad against running backs, Swift has handled 24 of 31 running back carries, targets 6 times. I don't know. This could be another case of like the defense is just so much worse than the 2 defenses they've faced so far. I think is we'll see if that's actually the case, but I think the Titans a pretty good defense this year. I think the Texans very good defense this year.
Definitely good, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it's going to be a softer matchup. Could be a get right spot all around for the Bears. I'm willing to try to get in early ahead of the field on some of these players that just haven't really shown anything yet. So those are the 2 that I would add are in the mix for me on the Bears. And then I'm not super excited about any Colts. I don't think I agree with the analysis that Davis gave. Like, it wouldn't shock us at all if either Jonathan Taylor or Anthony Richardson are great in this game, but definitely not big priorities for me.
Richardson's just really hard to stack. So I mean, you're kind of like, are you doing
I don't even think you do. Michael Pittman Jr. is probably not going to play, so you could do AD Mitchell, but I mean, it's like, let's say AD Mitchell catches a 70-yard bomb. He probably has to catch another long pass to get into optimals. So then it's just like, I don't know what is the likelihood of that? And I don't know. It feels kind of low.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Second game on the slate, New York Giants at Cleveland Browns. The Giants have 16 implied team total, tied for worst in the NFL this week. The Browns implied team total of 22.5, tied for 14th in the NFL. I'll just open this up to you guys. I know Malik Neighbors is obviously a pretty great usage so far this year, but tough matchup with the Browns. Pat, I'll throw it to you first this time. We'll go back and forth. What level of interest do you have in the players in this game?
It does set up as a matchup. Like when I was writing this up, I was like, in an entirely different universe, Deshaun Watson would be pretty interesting in this matchup.
Yep.
That's what jumped out to me. But Amari Cooper is not really separating in terms of the target share and everything from not just Jerry Jeudy but Elijah Moore. And so that's, I guess you probably do want to play it through Cooper, but I don't feel great about doing it. Akins was down to like 50-something% route participation last week, so I don't think that is a particularly appealing double, which would be interesting this week to kind of have a nice correlated punt tight end play, but I don't feel confident to go there. So am I doing like a more punt as a double stack or something? Like that doesn't feel very fun. So I don't really end up having a lot of interest in playing Watson, but I think he could end up having a decent game here. And then Neighbors, I think we'll get, he's going to get his targets, but Jones probably will struggle this week against this Browns pass rush. So I'm a little less excited about Neighbors than, in a setup like last week.
Davis, how about you? Anybody interest you more than Pat?
No, I don't even really like Amari Cooper prayer yards. He can kind of hit when he least expect it. Not that anyone and not that the Giants defense would even really put up that much of a struggle. The issue is Watson can't push the ball down the field well. Like anytime he has to amp the velocity up, he loses accuracy. I think that's why we saw the big emergence of Elijah Moore last week, because Elijah Moore is the best. Like, I need a bunch of 4-yard hitches and maybe get some yards after the catch after he makes the cornerback miss. Like Elijah Moore is really the one that can do that. Like Amari Cooper will definitely have a 32-point game at some point this year where Watson does just connect with him. But again, like this is a full slate. We don't have teams on bye yet. There are a lot of like crazy strong values. Ayuk and Devonta, that mid-tier wide receiver. Yeah. And it's just like, just putting Amari Cooper in your lineup, you're losing like 4 points versus the field right there. The fancy play I've got is Devin Singletary. He's earning like 90% of the running back share. The Tyrone Tracy has been in. When they get inside the 5-yard line, they've been subbing Tyrone Tracy in. I don't know what the deal is there. Like maybe he just happened to be on the field. Maybe it's a sub package. Like I don't know. I haven't heard the coaches say anything about it. But Singletary could be your particularly, and we'll get to Cam Akers whenever we get to him. But like Akers is going to be 4,700. He's going to be 50% owned in tournaments and stuff, maybe more. And Singletary is 5,400, I believe. So you just go down to a cheaper defense and you play Singletary there, and then you can just play like stone chalk around him. I don't. Okay, so you got to make it. You have to swap a couple things around, but it is relatively interesting to try and copy like the optimal build, but put cheap running back X, right? Some people it's going to be Swift, some people it's going to be Montgomery, whoever, but you just do Singletary there instead.
Yeah, that's an interesting call. I thought about putting Singletary. I struggle with this game in general. Not a single player did I list as a target. I have some MME plays that I would probably include in my 150 set if I were playing 150, but couldn't find a single player in this game that I'm like, yeah, this is a player that I want to get into lineups. I thought about including Devin Singletary as an MME play. Didn't even include him. This Browns defense is good. I think it's going to be a mess here for the Giants. So Malik Neighbors is the only player that I even included as an MME play. I do feel like this is I struggle more with the Brown side of it, because it wouldn't shock me at all if one of these guys is like, oh, this is the player you need at the end of the week. Like, obviously they were facing the Giants, should have seen this coming. Right. One of these guys is going to go off. But ultimately, like with the pricing, some of Davis kind of brought up some of the other players that you'd be giving up to get these guys into your lineup. Really hard for me to want to prioritize Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy. I think all fine in a 150 set. I'll include them, mix them in a little bit. But yeah, really, really hard to prioritize them, even in what is a pretty good matchup with the Giants. We also saw, Jerome Ford, elite usage week 1, and just kind of gave it all back last week to Deontay Foreman. I don't think there was an injury or anything unless I missed that.
I think it's a game script thing. I think it's like if they're trying to roll downhill, they're going to use Foreman a little bit more than Ford. Maybe is more like if they're passing, more like the explosive back type of thing. So if anything, I would feel like this game script probably favors Foreman more. Yeah. He's 4,400. I agree. And he's like a passing thought. He's more a guy I'm going to be like plugging into some main event type stuff. I don't know that I'll play him in DFS.
Yeah, again, just like a 150 play. If you're running 150 lineups, I would probably include some Deontay Foreman in there because of the price, the game script, all of that. But yeah, no no real priorities there. Third game on the slate, Green Bay Packers at Tennessee Titans. This game, again, just a total of 38 on the game. The Packers have an implied team total of 18.25, which I assume means we're working under the assumption that Jordan Love is out. The Titans an implied team total of 19.75. I'm kind of working under the assumption that Jordan Love is out. All the content I've done has assumed that Jordan Love is out. I think it'd be pretty surprising if he does play this week. We can adjust if that happens. But I'll throw it back to you, Davis. Anybody interesting to you in the Packers-Titans game?
Pollard, if Spears doesn't play or is limited, like if we get a Spears is limited, he's gonna be active, but he might not be full go. He's 6,000. Huge salary leverage on like Jordan Mason, for example. There are reasons to play him, but pass catchers in this game, no shot. No, absolutely no interest. You could also talk me into Jacobs. 36 touches for Jacobs last week, doesn't score, so I think he only gets 16. But pretty clear what Matt LaFleur wants to do when Jordan Love is not there. And it was a great game plan. I mean, they designed a lot of really cool stuff. Like it wasn't just like running like ISO dives. Like, it was a lot of really cool stuff that he had drawn up. So Jacobs honestly probably is a great play. Will I click him? I don't know, but theoretically he is a pretty good click.
Yeah. Pat, anybody that you like in this game?
Not a ton. I'm with Davis. I think Pollard and Jacobs are viable. I think, the Titans' run defense hasn't been awesome so far. So, I think maybe we could see them succeed on the ground, and they're going to try very hard to do that. Otherwise, they're going to have to lean on Malik Willis, which they don't want to do. And on the other side, Pollard's been decent. I think he's looked a lot better than Spears so far. He hasn't been super great in the advanced stats, but he's been pretty solid, and he's been good as a receiver. It's interesting that he has an 18% target share to Spears 11%. So he just looks like the lead back. So I think he would be, it's we felt like Spears was pretty limited, but maybe he's not out. And so, no one's really playing Pollard. I think he would be somewhat interesting, but it kind of requires low ownership and confidence that Spears isn't going to get much work.
Yeah. And I think we saw today that Spears is going to play, was the latest notification that I think I saw come through my field. So yeah, that's will drive down the ownership on Pollard. That was one of Davis's hero calls week one. Tony Pollard went off and Davis brought him up. I did not tail on that one, so regretted that. Played a little bit of Tyjae Spears, RIP those lineups. Pollard is the one in this game that I would be most inclined to play. I think I'm with both of you that maybe Tyjae Spears is limited a little bit. Tony Pollard has that kind of elite usage. Packers have given up the 6th most fantasy points, DraftKings fantasy points, to running backs so far this year. So decent spot for Pollard. That would be the play that stands out for me. Josh Jacobs, I think you're right, could just have elite usage again with Malik Willis out. Maybe they use him in some unique ways. So maybe a little bit in play there. Calvin Ridley, I included him as just an MME play. I was pretty shocked to see that he hit 20.93 miles per hour on a 10-yard rush in week 2, which was
he's back, baby.
Yeah, he's 29 years old, just as fast as ever. Good for Calvin Ridley. Maybe a little bit in play here, but certainly not a priority. All right, before we move on to the next game, we did get a super chat. So I don't usually spend a lot of time answering season-long questions. I let chat handle responses to the season-long questions because this is a DFS show. But since we got a super chat, figure we should probably read this one. Who would you start in flex out of
Rashad White? Easy.
White?
Or Zamir White.
Zamir White, Carolina.
Easy.
Oh,
easy.
Well, that makes it harder.
No, Zamir White's going to get 21 rushes for 78 yards and a touchdown this week. Madison scored the touchdown last week, but he actually played less. White got a greater percentage of the long down and distance stuff.
I am with you. So again, the question is Zamir White versus Carolina, Ladd McConkey versus Pittsburgh, Brian Thomas versus Buffalo, or pick up and start Juwan Jennings versus the Rams. And I think I'm with Davis that it would be Zamir White for me pretty easily. Pat, do you see it differently?
Well, I got all excited that it was Rashad White, and that was a big letdown that it was Zamir. But I think you guys are right that it is Zamir White still. I wrote him up as kind of like, this is your last
Right.
chance
Your
for
last
him
chance.
to
We're
really
dropping you,
be
buddy.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this could be you start him this week, you drop him next week type of situation.
Yep, absolutely. I think that is correct on Zamir White. All right, moving on. Philadelphia at New Orleans, one of the highest totals on the slate. The Eagles have an implied team total of 23.25, which is tied for 11th on the week. The Saints have an implied team total of 26.25, which is third on the week. Man, the Saints have the come up is real on the Saints. I will go back to Pat to answer first. Who do you have interest in this game? I'm assuming there's somebody in this game that you're going to have some interest in. Who do you have the most interest in? Who's in your player pool here?
This game just doesn't do it for me, man.
Really?
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
this is the game.
Yeah.
This game looks pretty fun. No, I mean, my preference on this game would be for everyone else to feel strongly and go a direction, and then I'll kind of like go wherever you guys aren't feeling comfortable. I'll go there. But the guy who jumps out to me, just off the rip is Chris Olave, as a potential interesting type of pivot because he hasn't had the production so far, but we're making some kind of leap of faith plays here in week 3, and Olave is I don't know if this is a little hop, right? We got the Saints offense is crushing. They're doing all of this sharp stuff that they didn't do the year before. It's unlocked Derek Carr's efficiency, but it's also unlocked his ability to throw deep. I said on the show last week, his time to throw, it's like 2.82. Like, that's not going to work against the Cowboys. They're going to have to adjust the game plan. They did not adjust the game plan at all. They doubled down on the game plan. They did way more play action against the Cowboys, and his time to throw did not fall. He's still able to throw downfield against that pass rush. I think they feel like they have something here, and they're going to lean into it. And I expect them to have success again throwing this week. Hopefully the Eagles push them. We get a full game out of the Saints passing offense. Rashid Shaheed has been really good, but Chris Olave, we felt very strongly a month ago, was a much better receiver. And I think still, is a much better receiver. And his efficiency has been good to date. So it's just, he hasn't like popped off for a huge game yet, but this is in a game environment that we're really excited about. You get a guy we were taking in the second round and he's got 2.36 yards per out run through 2 weeks. His quarterback looks great. They're doing lots of stuff that unlocks downfield passing. And because Kamara is in such an awesome spot, I have a hard time seeing Olave becoming like super chalky. So he's my hope. My hope is that everyone just kind of floods to Kamara, and I can play Olave.
I like that call. Get the little bit of leverage on Kamara. Davis shaking your head.
It's just 2024 DFS. Olave what does Olave have? Like 9 PPR points through 2 games. He's going to have 32 this week, and he's going to be more owned than points he scores.
He's so owned. Yeah.
And then I don't even know who the Saints play next week. Let's pretend the Saints have a more difficult matchup next week. He goes back 3%. to being 3% owned, and then he he scores 11 points. And it's just like, and it's Will Fuller. The first guy I remember this ever happening with wasn't even Will Fuller. This is way back in Christian Kirk's Arizona career. Christian Kirk, his second season, I want to say, scored 3 touchdowns the whole year. 3 of them were in one game, and he was 47% owned that week.
Wow.
People are too good at the game. Olave's not sneaking up on anyone. Crane, I actually believe Kamara is going to be the leverage play on Olave.
And I will play Kamara.
Yeah.
That's what Olave was the cover boy in the walkthrough this week, and so I would love to. That would be my preference, to play Olave. I'm excited about him. I think he's going to have a good game. But I'm also serious about, if the market decides that they want to play Olave, you're welcome to do so. I will play Kamara. I mean, I think Kamara is in an amazing spot. This looks like not just a rushing matchup that he can do well in, which it is, but I mean, he leads all running backs in yards per route run, right? He's Alvin Kamara. He's a receiving back. Like, this could actually be a spot where they pass more, and it unlocks the PPR ceiling for Kamara. So, I would prefer to have a really good feel for where everyone's going. That's what I want. I just want everyone to telegraph where they're going to go, and then I'll go the other way.
So neither of you has really said much on the Eagles side of the game. Are you guys not interested in the Eagles, or are you just starting with the Saints here?
I was just starting with the Saints. I think
Okay.
I like Devonta. I probably will play some Barkley. Like right now, I'm looking at ownership stuff, and Barkley projects as the 5th highest scoring running back, but at like 7% ownership, and I'm like, dude, Barkley leads the NFL in expected points for running backs. I think he's second behind A-Chain. And it's
he's
like,
first, he's first by PFF.
There you go. So AJ Brown's out. It's a really good offensive environment. I don't know, man. I feel like Barkley does probably do the thing. I don't know, but it's like the other thing is running back is so good this week that Barkley might get 28 and not even come close to mattering.
Yeah, because he's pretty expensive, 7,700. I mean, but that would be another example. Like if the field just decides Barkley's too expensive to play this week, he's in a really nice spot where they could have, like, AJ Brown's out, and we were expecting Devontae Smith to get a ton of targets, but they could just run the offense a little bit more through Barkley. And he's been really good this year, so like that wouldn't be a crazy thing to do. What do you think about Smith with Ayuk? Like Ayuk's like what, $700?
That's just what people are playing in cash. Not
with Ayuk, but does Smith versus like does Ayuk end up being mega chalk and kind of stealing from Smith? I could see.
I bet they're both above 30%, Ayuk and Smith, in the SPY, the $100 single entry or whatever. Yeah. And honestly, they also might end up. It might be so insane that we might see 25% Olave, 35% Devonta, 35% Ayuk in single entry stuff. Like it might just be the all-time chalk fit. I mean, these guys are Ayuk is projected the same as Justin Jefferson, which is probably a little hot for Ayuk, honestly. I think he's got I think Ayuk has a lot of room to fail here. But yeah, they're like Devonta, I actually think has no room to fail. I would be stunned if he got less than 15 points. I would be like legitimately stunned.
Counterpoint, CeeDee Lamb last week against the same defense.
Didn't he have 4 for 94 and 1?
What, was CeeDee Lamb better than I think he was? Maybe I just think that because Dak was so bad. All right, okay.
He scored a 60-yard touchdown.
All right, I'll take back my counterpoint then. All right, yeah. So I was gonna bring up Marshawn Lattimore. I think might return this week. Does that scare you off at all with the Devonta Smith? I'm gonna be playing a good amount of Smith, so I want to be clear about that. I like Smith,
put him in the slot and they'll get him away. They'll say Britton Covey, you go try and win against Lattimore.
Right. There's just no one else. I mean, I don't even play cash, but imagine not playing Devonta Smith in cash this week.
Right. Can't even imagine that. Yeah,
I can't. I really can't imagine.
What about Hurts? Are you guys playing any like full stacks here?
Its salary stuff is tough.
Yeah.
And Barkley has impacted. I mean, we've already seen it.
Yeah.
We've already seen that he's impacted how they play in the red zone. They're throwing to running backs inside the 10. I don't in my life ever remember seeing DeAndre Swift like run a flat route inside the 5-yard line. Like I'm sure it happened, but I definitely don't remember it.
Well, they're trying to forget the one that Saquon Barkley just ran.
Right. But that would have been a touchdown. If he caught that, he's walking into the end zone.
Yeah, except for that one small detail.
So this is we just got a question about Goddard. This is such another 2024 DFS thing. It's like 2018 DFS, we're locking Goddard in. Right. It's just like 4,800. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm just playing Brock Bowers. I'm just playing the guy who projects 6 points better than him.
Agreed.
I'll have some Goddard in large field tournaments just because he's going to come in at super low ownership. Theoretically, should have a little bit more usage with AJ Brown out. We didn't really see it. He was targeted 5 times last week, so I don't know if that's maybe a slight increase, but theoretically should benefit from AJ Brown being out. So I have some interest there, leverage on Devontae, all that stuff. Not a huge play for me that I'm going to be jamming into lineups, but I think I have some interest there. I'm generally with you though that Brock Bowers is just such a great pick that it's going to be hard to get away from that. I would note Rashid Shaheed. This is not the best matchup for Shaheed. Now, I don't know if that's going to continue to be a thing. Historically, it's been Rashid Shaheed. You play him against zone defenses, you bench him against man defenses. He does really well against zone defenses. Now, this is not a great spot. The Eagles play a lot more man than zone. They play man at one of the highest rates in the league. So not really a Shaheed spot, but he is just so involved in the offense now that might not be as much of an issue as it was in years past. I don't think there is anybody else. I'm with you on Olave as a result, in part as a result of that. Kamara seems like a fine play. I think that we've talked about this game, talked about all the players that are most interesting here. We did get another.
Is there any interest in Carr? In trying to actually stack him, or you're playing Olave alone?
He's Stafford rule to me, where his guy could have 37 points and he just like maxes out at 22.
Is that true now though? Like in this iteration of the Saints, does he have some upside? I know he normally doesn't.
I was gonna say he threw 16 passes in a game. They scored like 47. Like it just, I maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
You definitely need the game to kind of shoot out, or at least not fizzle. Like they can't have a beatdown script.
I didn't get any Carr. I ran Sims this morning, and I didn't get. Okay. I got a lot of Saints, but I didn't get any Carr.
It felt like a little thin, but I did want to mention it.
It's a good call. I mean, he's averaging 11.4 yards per pass attempt this year, so not a ton of pass attempts because they're just so efficient on all the attempts. So many long plays there for Carr. This good point from FF Doom. 24 points is like overall QB1 now. Yeah, quarterback going way down. Maybe
that's a good point.
Yeah, maybe,
Yeah,
we just bring the quarterback. It's almost like tight end. You just correlate your quarterback to get it in the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. G Medina, another super chat here says, need to pick a defense, have to drop one from my bench.
DeMarcus Robinson,
Devin Singletary, Deontay, obviously. Deontay Johnson, Quentin Johnston, DeMarcus Robinson, George Pickens. I think it might be Quentin Johnston for me.
If you're not starting DeMarcus, then I would just probably drop him.
Yeah.
Like what is DeMarcus's upside down the stretch is 0. So you got to decide if you're using him, then drop Johnston.
I'm team DeMarcus in general. He's one of my highest exposed players in best ball. Davis and I have had this debate, the DeMarcus Robinson debate. Was really looking to rub it in this week after DeMarcus Robinson had that 40-yard catch last week. If he had just done anything else, if he had scored the touchdown on the end zone, but you're probably right. You're probably right that DeMarcus Robinson is the drop because Quentin Johnston is like more likely to sustain his production. I think once one of the top receivers comes back, maybe DeMarcus is droppable. I think in like if they weren't playing the Niners this week, if they were playing a worse defense, I think I'd be more excited to play DeMarcus Robinson as the potential wide receiver one. But yeah, it's definitely one of those two. I think I'd be fine.
The fact that he's considering dropping like Pickens, I'm feeling like this league is not super deep.
Good point.
So
yeah. You could probably safely drop DeMarcus. Okay. Next game is Chargers at Pittsburgh. So a couple of players we were just talking about. Chargers.
Pretty quick. Not one team, not defenses, not the running backs. This game's going to be over in 2 hours. Each team is these are the two bottom teams in the NFL in pass rate over expectation, and Justin Herbert might not play.
I think that is honestly fair analysis. I think you could just entirely skip this game. Total of 36 for the game.
It's like a college football DFS slate where you have Oklahoma and Texas with a total of 84.5, and then you scroll the tab over to the next game, and it's Iowa, Nebraska with a total of 28.5, and people are touting the under.
Yeah.
You're not gonna play one of those Iowa tight ends. You can't get.
There's not even a Luke Lachey in this game, brother. We got nothing.
I guess defenses. You could play the defenses. Well,
you want defenses that face passes. You want defenses that face passes.
That is true. So maybe not even the defenses are the best. Pat, do you see anybody from this game that you want to play?
I mean, you could maybe play Naked Fields, I guess, but no, I'm not going to do that. But
I included Fields, Pickens, and Najee Harris as MME plays. But don't feel particularly great about any of them. I don't really think we need to get into it. None of them are priorities. Remember, they're like you can mix them in a large field GPP because we've seen Fields with DJ Moore have those games that you need. It could still happen with George Pickens. His separation score has been great so far this year.
He almost had a big game last week. Yeah, had a lot of stuff called back. Yeah, he could have had a much bigger day.
So mix in the Fields rushing with, like, maybe say he does have a couple big catches, and suddenly you're looking at a totally different story with George Pickens. So I think that stack is like somewhat viable. Najee Harris, I don't, probably not actually. Like the
You
more
could
the
play
more
Najee
running
Harris
back,
you could play Najee on FanDuel if Cam Akers wasn't literally 4,000.
yeah,
He's
he is
literally
way too cheap.
4,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, that is so insane. That's a cash game lock. Yeah, I don't think we need to get into this game much more. I think it is just such a gross game. Houston Texans at Minnesota Vikings. Texans have an implied team total of 24. That's 9th best on the weekend. The Vikings have an implied team total of 22. That's 18th best on the weekend. I think there's some fantasy goodness here. I don't even remember whose turn it is to go first. So I'll throw it to Davis, because I know that he is really high on Justin Jefferson. Was his guy in best ball all summer. I know he wants to play some Justin Jefferson, so I'll let Davis go first with this one.
Yeah, that is true. So the Sims actually don't like this game, but I'm saying that the Sims are wrong. It's because
IKB.
Nico is not projected quite as good as his salary, and because basically Diggs and Dell in a projection, Diggs and Dell are going to look the same. They're going to be like 13.5 points. Right. But in reality, one of them way exceeds their median and one of them goes below, like a huge chunk of the time. So my move this week is Stroud, Dell, Diggs, Nico. Choose one. Choose Naylor. Choose Jefferson. I actually am doing the bring back here because both these coaches do actually want to run. Like Slowick wants to run, and KOC is a Shanahan disciple. He would 26 and 24 pass attempts for Darnold in the 2 games. So you do kind of want these guys going back and forth. And I can't believe it. Every DFS slate, I open it up. Justin Jefferson is projected for either the most points or the second most points, and then his projected ownership is 4. So it's like, all right, well, I'll probably just keep playing him then. He's pretty good.
It's a good Texans defense, but Justin Jefferson, we've seen he can do it against anybody. He is not Garrett Wilson. Yeah. It doesn't matter. He's Justin Jefferson. Respectfully, Pat, any different take on this game? Anybody stand out to you? Any wild card takes you like?
I mean, I think the Nico Collins is interesting. I think Tank Dell is really interesting at 5,200. That's probably the guy who jumps out the most. The thing that's annoying is that CJ Stroud at 7,100, I'm probably not going there because if you're like, okay, Nico, Tank, all right, I'm going to do a double stack, and then you're like, with Stroud being that expensive, it's a little harder to fit. Darnold at 5,500 is kind of interesting, but not. I mean, I think if you're playing Darnold, you kind of almost have to have Jefferson. So now am I back off Nico? But yeah, I would like to find ways to attack this game that's not Cam Akers, because I mean, Cam Akers is going to be. Not that I won't maybe have any, but, he's going to be such big chalk. It'd be nice to kind of pivot.
And Cam Akers, he's worse in the passing game than I thought he was. I thought he was more involved historically as a pass catcher. I was just looking through his past seasons, like never more than 18 targets in a season. Just really not involved as a pass catcher. So I guess
he's Jordan Mason. He's literally think of him as Jordan Mason. The reason why he's on the team is not that he's good. It's not that he's explosive. It's just that he knows the Shanahan one cut zone blocking. Like Akers was a Ram. He spent like, it's the same system. It's the same. It's all the same. It's probably the same verbiage. It's literally probably the same words to call plays that he was using in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Which
I guess. Oh, good. Sorry.
I was just say, he's gonna have a great role here. So doesn't need to be good as long as he's getting that run. What were you gonna say, Pat?
Nico Collins, I do think, is one of those guys who in a couple weeks could be priced even significantly higher than this. Yep. Yeah. And so that makes him interesting in what could be a pretty a decent game. I noted in the walkthrough he had to date he has a 41% double coverage rate, 96th percentile among wide receivers, and yet being targeted on 26% of his routes with a 3.71 yards per route run. Kind of seeing like a superstar level breakout here, in the makings that if this continues, like, he's not going to be that far below Jefferson. So, getting him at this price could end up looking cheap in retrospect.
Yeah, and we also, I mean, if everybody is going to be jamming Cam Akers, I wonder if this could be a great leverage spot. Just play it through. Well, what if it's just the passing game that goes off? Cam Akers just doesn't really get the opportunities because they're scoring long touchdowns, doing it through the air.
That's going to totally represent itself in ownership too. People won't want to play Nico or Dell or whoever with Akers, which is interesting because Dell is a cash play. So I wonder what that's just kind of interesting. You don't see spots like this all that often. Like, how often did Mason and Debo get played together in tournaments last week? Like, probably more than you'd expect running back wide receiver teammates to be paired without their quarterback, but less often maybe than was even optimal.
So you think combinatorially, even though it is like leverage on Akers, you think that it's just going to be like that is going to be the split? People aren't going to play Nico Collins with Cam Akers. It's going to be like either they're playing the passing game or the running game. I think the field will play it that way.
I just think it's that Dell projects so strong at 52. And then he's 5,200. I just think Nico projects like a guy who should be 13% owned, but he'll probably end up being like 8% owned if I had to guess.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I might try to do some CJ Stroud double stacks, just try to force it in there because we have so much value. I might try to do the just pay all the way up for the game stack with CJ Stroud double. Tank Dell brings down the price a little bit, and then just try to get cheap everywhere else because I think there are enough kind of cheap options throughout the slate. I might try to do it, but
I know I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of it. I haven't really tried to build like that, but I would love if I could find a way to do that because it gets you the leverage off of Akers. I mean, and Akers for his price is a really strong play, but it's Cam Akers. Like I'm betting against Cam Akers.
Can fail, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he can fail, yeah.
So I'll probably try to do a full game stack at start with that, and it gets really expensive quickly if you're going CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, Justin Jefferson, and then Tank Dell brings it down a little bit, but it's an expensive start. But I think even without Cam Akers, I feel like there are some other decent cheap running back options on this. I mean, Jordan Mason, not overly expensive, but not as cheap as he once was. I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. I'll play around with it, see if I can make a lineup that I like doing that.
You probably have to do is one of the other kind of grosser running back punt plays. But there's some of those guys seem like semi-viable, and if it's getting you a bunch of leverage, maybe it's and I think the stack has a lot of ceiling to it at least.
Yeah. What about Jalen Naylor as bringing down the price of the stack? Like include him in a game stack?
If Jalen Naylor, if I told you this information right now, if Jalen Naylor catches a 17-yard touchdown, you don't have any other information than that, how likely is it that he outscores Cam Akers in your mind?
So he can score more fantasy points to that.
He can score more, but you just have that knowledge right now.
85%?
Yeah. Well, the ownership discrepancy will be like 3% Naylor, 57%.
I thought you were going to say he did.
He did.
Actually from the future, and he does.
Right. Yeah, that happens, by the way.
I mean, dude, he can. Kareem, I kind of liked him as a prospect. Like, I kind of thought he was all right. So I like, obviously he's running super hot. He's running super hot on touchdowns, but what if he runs out one more week?
His nickname is Speedy. I mean, come on, that's a burner. If his nickname is Speedy, he's got that big play upside. That's my rule.
He locked that wide receiver 3 roll down in training camp, and so I think he's interesting. I wish it's probably like a little cheaper, to be honest. Like I'd love if he was in that Elijah Moore $3,800 kind of range, but
yeah. Agreed. All right, we'll move on. Denver at Tampa Bay. Broncos implied team total of 16.75, 30th of the week. Buccaneers 23.25 implied team total is tied for 11th on the week. Are the Broncos are we ever going to play the Broncos? I feel like if you are ever going to play the Broncos, this might be the spot. I did include Bo Nix in my write-up, but as just an MME play, definitely not a target, but just as a what if he is better than he's shown, better matchup? I don't know. It might be too galaxy brain. Pat, I'll go to you first. Any interest in Broncos or Bucks?
I mean, if we're still on the cash discussion, I think Chris Godwin's got that target floor, man. He's going to get a lot of targets again this week. We're seeing this quick passing game for the Buccaneers that I think they're going to be keeping up here. They're going against Broncos team that leads the league in blitz rate. And we've seen a bunch of quick targets to Godwin, and targets against the blitz to Godwin. He's got a 33% targets per route run against the blitz compared to 24% for Evans. He's at 35% on quick throws compared to 22% for Evans. And then also he's just been targeted a lot more. He's at 31% on all routes, and Evans is at 21%. So I think this is like another kind of similar game where Godwin is just a really big piece of what they're trying to do to keep the chains moving and make sure Baker's not getting hit. So I don't know. I guess I'm like, as far as, game environment and wanting, to stack stuff and have different pieces of these games, this one doesn't really appeal to me a ton, but Godwin definitely jumps out as like someone who's going to see, I think he's going to see a lot of targets again.
Godwin or Olave?
I'm going to go Olave there just for, it gets me into a game I like better. And I probably, do something else in that game. And, in addition to Olave too.
So that
Okay.
right there it's super interesting. Godwin, 19.7% projected ownership. Olave, 19.9. They're both projected for between 15 and 16 points, depending where you're looking. But in my experience, these things tend to be binary. You don't tend to see split. You don't tend to see splits like that. You don't have, well, I'm an independent thinker and I'm going to click Godwin, but I'm an independent thinker and I'm going to click Olave. No, everyone is going to turn on their favorite fantasy football show on Sunday morning and then do whatever they're influenced to think of there, which means one of these dudes is going to 30 and one of these dudes is going to 10. I don't know which one is which. My guess is Olave. My guess is Olave.
Godwin's comfier. I think Godwin you can predict, and so Kamara's comfier than Godwin or than Olave. Kamara's the comfier saint. And so then are you going to play Olave and Kamara together, or are you going to go to Godwin? So I'm kind of biased because I'd rather play Olave, but I think if it probably depends on Kamara. If people feel like, no, Kamara's actually not worth playing, then maybe it is Olave.
Yeah, I would guess that Godwin comes in at higher ownership. Everybody was really excited to play him last week. I know it's 2024 DFS, but after he did really well for everybody who played him last week, I think that he probably is going to get steamed again. Still only 6,500, so we still have that $700 price discrepancy between Godwin and Mike Evans. That was I got that one super wrong last week. I was like, if everybody's going to go to Godwin, he really didn't do all that much last year. Just looking through his box where he's like, he had a couple spike weeks, but for the most part, he was not that great. And I knew he's moving to the slot more. He's getting those lower ADOT stuff. But I was hopeful that maybe they would go to Evans more last game. Of course, it was Godwin who scored the 41-yard touchdown, whatever it was. Really hurt me last week seeing Godwin go off. I think I might try to do it again with Mike Evans. Just martingale this until I lose all of my money is the plan, I think. But don't feel super strongly about it.
I think Godwin comes in higher. Like, how do you not project Godwin well? Like, everyone's going to have Godwin projected well, right? Like, it's just locked in.
He's going to be targeted a lot. Yeah, we've seen it back-to-back games. Davis, any other takes on this game?
Not really. I'm not really interested in Aaron Jones. He was like losing some early down work to Ty Chandler.
Wait, we're not on that game yet. We're on Broncos Bucks.
Oh God, I thought we were still talking about. No. I mean, Rachaad White is like, he's such a good theoretical play. Like, dude, I'm gonna get 18 carries and 4 targets. You look at the box score and he's got 6.4 points.
Yeah. Also, like, are you trying to finish like 250th in the SPY? Like, is that your goal?
Right.
Because that feels like a Rachaad White outcome to me.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, he was just removed from the final injury report. I was going to say in my notes it was he's been banged up a little bit all week. So I was like, what if he's out? Would we be in on Bucky Irving? I feel like at that point if Rachaad White is out, but it looks like he is going to play in this game. Jalen McMillan, I know, is a guy that we've talked about a little bit on this podcast in the past. I think he only has 5 targets on the year, so early promising signs has not really come to fruition. Is this just don't play it until we see it?
Yeah, more or less. He can't earn any targets right now.
Yeah. It's really concentrated. He's got this deep ADOT. I don't think this is a matchup where Baker's just like sitting and hanging in the pocket and letting stuff develop deep. I think they'd be trying to get the ball out of his hands really quickly. I think Mike Evans could be a part of that. He's one of their most important players, so they're going to have stuff for him too. won't just be Godwin, but this isn't a spot where I'm real excited about ancillary pieces.
All right, yeah, low scoring game. Probably already spent enough time on it, so we can continue. Move on to really fun one here: Carolina Panthers at Las Vegas Raiders. A total of 40. We have a lot of
Actually
really
might
low
be fun
totals.
now.
It could be fun with Andy Dalton now starting for the Panthers for the benched Bryce Young. Panthers have an implied team total of 17.5, and I did double check that like well after we got the Andy Dalton news. I don't think it has budged all that much. So I think 17.5 implied team total, 28th on the weekend. The Raiders have an implied team total of 22.5, tied for 14th on the weekend. Davis, I'll go to you first. You already talked about Brock Bowers. We've talked a little bit about Zamir White. Tell me about your level of interest in any player in this game.
I think this is my spiciest take of the slate. Very rarely do I do things like this where guys are like legitimately projected for like 2 points. I'm kind of interested in Leggett. I'm kind of interested in Leggett. He is running about 60% of the routes. He's kind of splitting them with Mingo. I'm wondering if, okay, we send Bryce Young to the bench. It's time to just get serious. It's time to just play ball. Mingo, we tried. You're bad. It's over. Like you're the clear wide receiver 5 now. You come out and
know what
run
we need, Davis?
sprints.
We need reporting on, was Leggett spending a ton of time on the second team with Dalton?
Ooh.
Who has the connection with Dalton from the scout team?
Yes.
Leggett looked really good in week 1. And I was a hater. I was a Leggett hater as a prospect. I was like, this guy is not going to make it. Classic Panthers, like Mingo part 2. I think everyone, like not everyone, because the way it shakes out, Deontay will be like, I don't know, 15%. And then Thielen will be like 3% from the people who were like, I'm ascending to the next plane. You're playing Deontay Johnson. I'm playing Adam Thielen. We are not the same. And then I'm going, it's the church sniper meme. And I'm all the way in the back with my Xavier Leggett sniper.
Yes.
Yeah, but the satellite is Mingo. The satellite's Mingo.
The satellite is Mingo. Yeah.
Mingo's too far.
I think it's funny that we as a prospect, you're like, this guy's basically Jonathan Mingo. Then he goes to the Panthers, and then he's now splitting time and has the exact same efficiency as Jonathan Mingo. It's just, he just was Jonathan Mingo again. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Didn't he get some play? Didn't some of his playing time in week 1 come when they were like pretty out of it? I guess I'd just be worried about playing time for Leggett.
That's a good question. I have not looked at the splits for Xavier Leggett because I was not considering a player who has a projection of like 2. So that's where, Davis, if you're going to bring up players with a projection of 2, you need to really do the deep dive into did he only play in garbage time?
I've done the deep dive. DJ Shark had 4. DJ Shark had 4 for 86 and 1, and Andy Dalton's only start last year. That is the sort of role that he's going to fulfill in this offense, being that he's the only one that can run. He's literally like, I actually don't think him to Shark is a perfect 1-to-1. Leggett has got more yak to his game.
Right.
But if the thesis is this offense goes
Debo
from being
there?
He's wish cast.
Oh yes, that's what I meant. Is he? And again, him to Debo is not a 1-to-1 comp either.
Right.
I said like his the easiest way to do player comps is players that you've watched a lot, which means good players. So this sounds insane, but stylistically, if Leggett is good, it's kind of like a mix of like a Metcalf style player who can win outside, but a Debo style player who can add yak. Obviously, he's not that category player. He's much,
with the feet of David Montgomery.
With the feet of David, exactly. And again, like I said, I really don't do stuff like this. Like I play the product own of my lineups would like make people blush. I play a lot of chalk, but man, also sometimes you just get a feeling. Sometimes in DFS, you do just get a feeling, and I kind of have a feeling.
I like it. Those are some of my favorite plays to lean into when you do just have a feeling. I love those plays in large field tournaments. Obviously, you're not doing this in a small field tournament, but yeah, lean into that feeling. But you didn't really talk that much about Davis. I was sure you would want to talk about the Raiders. You talked about Brock Bowers. Do you have anything more to add on Brock Bowers or Zamir White? You talked about a little bit earlier too. What's your level of interest in the Raiders?
Zamir White is more of a battle royale play where he's like legit, like drafted like 5% of the time. So he's like 1% owned or whatever. But Bowers, if McBride's going to be 15% and Laporta is going to be 10% and Andrews is going to be 8%, does that just leave Bowers in kind of no man's land at 5,400 when he might just be the best one out of all of them?
I feel like it's too obvious. Like I'm shocked at how low the projected ownership on Brock Bowers is, because I was looking through the slate just so, kind of open up my phone, look at like what are the prices, what are the matchups, and he like stood out to me like a sore thumb. Like, oh yeah, Brock Bowers against Carolina, that's a smash spot. But then everywhere I look, has him under 10% projected ownership. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he comes in at like 18, like that. And
I see
people want to play
15. I see 15.
Yeah,
even still at 15 feels pretty good.
It does. I don't hate it at 15.
There's really not a lot else to do at tight end too. It's not like there's someone. I mean, McBride's interesting, but there's not a ton. So you could just be like, I don't know, I'm gonna play Bowers.
We lost Kittle. I loved Kittle when I looked at it too, and now he's
yeah.
no longer. Looks like he's doubtful. So yeah, Bowers stands out like a sore thumb. Great play. Pat, any other plays that you want to talk about from this game?
Yeah, I mean, Zamir White and Chuba Hubbard, I think, are like, I'm at least going to like think through it, just because, as we talked about when we got the start sit question, like this is the spot. Like if Zamir White's ever going to have any value, it would be like against this run defense in a game where they can probably control it even with Andy Dalton on the other side instead of Bryce Young. But it doesn't feel good. But you're like, this is what if we do that Houston stack we talked about earlier, like we got to find something that doesn't feel good. Those two would at least be in the mix for trying to unlock something I really want to do. I'm not going to these guys at all as like, oh yeah, I want to play these dudes, but they are cheap.
Yeah. What about, Devontae Adams? Is it like, I feel like Devontae Adams is one of those players that nobody ever wants to click it. And then he just has like many good games throughout the year. I sort of have interest in a really soft matchup with the Panthers. I think Devontae Adams probably a good kind of contrarian play just because nobody wants to go there and he has the softest matchup on the board. So I think I am going to play some Devontae. The one I'm actually struggling with is, do I stack it with Gardner Minshew at all? And because in my mind, I think of Gardner Minshew as a guy who has had periods of like major fantasy relevance, like can sustain an offense, make pass catchers better. His game log last year left a lot more to be desired than in my memory, but he did have 1 week with 28 fantasy points, finished as the quarterback 3 on the week. Another week was 20.6 fantasy points, finished as the quarterback 6 on the week. I don't know. I sort of feel like with all of these weapons, like we want to play Brock Bowers, obviously. I kind of want to play Devontae Adams. Maybe it does make sense to just play the 5,300 low-owned Gardner Minshew against the Panthers and just hope that this is, that one of like 2 outlier games throughout the course of the season. Because I don't love that many quarterbacks this week. So I think that's part of it. It's just like, if I don't love any quarterbacks, maybe just go to the low-owned guy who has a great matchup.
And like
he ran a little bit.
I do too. Yeah, doesn't run much.
The Adams play is pretty interesting. He jumped out when I was writing up the game. Against the blitz, he has a 41% targets per route run to Bowers is 13. And his first read target rate is at 22%. Bowers is at 15%. Bowers has a higher target per route run, 27% to 22%. But the offense looks designed to get Adams the ball as their primary option, as we would expect. Bowers is doing a great job earning targets, but what if they're getting blitzed? What if they're having to get the ball out very quickly? And the Panthers have the 4th highest blitz rate. So they do blitz. They had the 5th highest last year under the same defensive coordinator. So I think it could kind of highlight the Raiders' offensive plan, which is still revolving around Adams. So that's kind of an interesting stack. I mean, Minshew, I agree, is interesting at this price and this slate. And then you get the Adams stack. If Bowers ends up being popular, that also makes it even more interesting.
Yeah. Food for thought at the very least. All right, I think we can move on to Miami at Seattle. Could have been a really fun game here. No Tua Tagovailoa though. Dolphins have an implied team total of 18.5. That is the difference that Tua makes. At least the drop down to Skylar Thompson. Team total of 18.25, 26th on the week. The Seahawks at 23, 13th highest implied team total on the week. Starting with the Dolphins again, I mentioned before the show, looking at different projection sources as I'm writing my cash article, there are places that have Tyreek Hill projected insanely well. I'm not buying into it. I don't think I'm going to a ton of Tyreek Hill, except for like, I guess he is gonna looks like he's coming in at very low ownership. I guess that would be the case for Tyreek Hill. Devin Achane going to be the chalkier. Pat, I guess I'll throw it to you. You can talk about both teams, the Dolphins and Seahawks. Who do you have interest in this game?
I mean, I do have interest in Charbonnet just because he's going to get all the work. He had a 96% snap share last week. He wasn't efficient, and frankly, it's not really that good. But he's going to get a ton of work in a game that they really should control. The Dolphins have been pretty efficient against the run so far, but ESPN's run stop win rate, they're 26th in that. And they're just going to be in a spot where the Seahawks are going to be able to run on them, game script wise. But I'm also interested in Achane on the other side. His expected points are incredible, and he hasn't been able to deliver as an efficient runner yet.
Literally just wait until he's ripping off
right?
He's negative rush yards over expectation right now.
Like real negative. He's RB 47 in rush yards over expected per game, which, is he bad? Is he a bad runner? Like, not after last year. I'm going to ride that out and bet on positive regression with that, in part because he has a 3.09 yards per route run. He's getting targeted on 30% of his routes. Like, he's a huge part of their passing game, and he's been really efficient there. So he is showing talent and explosiveness. It just hasn't been as a runner yet. But yeah, he's RB3 in expected points per game at 22.2. I assume they're just going to have a lot for him this week. They almost have to. So yeah, I think both running backs are pretty interesting.
Yep, definitely with you on the running backs. Davis, anybody else that you want to play?
No, it's not one of the most appealing spots of the slate, I don't think.
What do you think about the Charbonnet chalk? Are you willing to eat that or not?
I mean, yeah, Charbonnet seems good. I guess you know what? I misspoke. Achane I like quite a bit. Charbs, to be honest, I wonder if Miami is just a bad run defense. People were saying this, and it's hard to tell what's Cope and what's not because I don't know defensive players that well. But people were saying after the James Cook explosion, Miami is this terrible run defense. They lost guys in their front seven. I don't know how much any of this shit means. James Cook is probably just pretty good, and Charbonnet is not good like that. But I mean, he literally played every snap but one, and Kenny McIntosh didn't get the ball on that one play. That's a lot of work.
Pretty good usage, yeah.
That's pretty good.
Weirdly, I was not expecting this, but Geno sims pretty well because JSN projects well and he's cheap, and because Achane projects very well. So you're getting a lot of natural correlation there. And you're also getting some Tyreek in the sims. He doesn't project that well, but he's got the crazy ceiling projection. So in the sims, you're just going to get some of the Tyreek explosion games. I think Geno, JSN, I got something in my throat. Geno, JSN, Achane, that's kind of cashy, but not. Geno won't be that owned, and JSN will be less owned because he's 200 more than Dell, who projects slightly better. That's pretty fun. And Crane, I mean, I don't know your read, but my read last week was that was just the changing of the guard. There's no flipping the Lockett JSN switch back. Yep. That just Lockett is now the elder statesman, and it's JSN. JSN, in fact, I would maybe even bet JSN out targets Metcalf for the rest of the year now.
Ooh,
after watching how
spicy.
They used him in that game.
I mean, that was the type of stuff I was saying last year. Down the stretch, maybe he's the target leader because that's who he is. He gets open and gets targets in the intermediate area, and Metcalf is more the big play guy. So I think that's very plausible. Do you have any interest in Geno doubles with Metcalf?
I just I don't know if doubles are. I don't even know if doubles can get there. Just in this NFL, how did doubles get? What happens for a guy to throw 48 passes and get 380 passing yards and 4 touchdowns in this NFL? It just feels like they could be playing 7-on-7 and quarterbacks still might not get that. It feels insane. And Seattle's offensive line is not good. Geno made some crazy throws and played very well under pressure, but their offensive line in general, I would expect to be bad. It's kind of like Seattle's curse. When's the last time Seattle had a good offensive line? Never.
Let me give the counterpoint about doubles just in generally, not necessarily this double. I think the counterpoint is because scoring is down everywhere and like passing attacks are down everywhere. If you do get one to pop off, they're going to be a huge outlier.
Oh
and
yeah,
really set
you're
you apart from
shipping.
the field.
You're shipping. Yes.
So yeah, I go back and forth. Like I was always a single stack guy because like if you're really trying to hit your ultimate ceiling, seems like you want it all the passing going to one receiver. And then sort of was talked into by some people who are smarter than me. Maybe you should be double stacking. Now it is interesting with the trends. Like, do you want to lean into double stacks more? Do you give up on the double stacks because it just doesn't work out all that often? And I don't know what the answer is. But I think that would be the counterpoint. Is just like if it does hit, it's really going to separate from the rest of the field because it is such a low scoring.
The literal counterpoint is that JSN went 12 for 117 and DK went 10 for 129 and 1 last week.
Last week,
you would have been pretty happy with that.
Yep.
You would have been.
I would take that.
Stoked.
Yep.
I mean, not to go back to 2020 or 2021 DFS, but like I do think you want the bring back if you're doing that because you need and it's probably Achan, right? You need the Dolphins to not just be a mess.
Well, that's a spot where using a bring back makes sense because Achan's just a good play regardless of what else is in the line. Just in a vacuum, he's just a good play.
Right.
Yeah. Noah Fant is the only other player that I wrote up from this game. Fourth on the Seahawks in route participation and targets with 7 total targets on the year. I don't feel great. It's just there's not a ton of tight ends on the slate that I wanted to write up. So I was like, I guess I'll throw Noah Fant in there as somebody who's theoretically playable. Not really going to spend much time on that. We'll move on. We'll move on to Detroit at Arizona. I believe this is the highest total on the slate. The Lions have the highest implied team total on the slate with 27.25. The Cardinals have an implied team total of 24.25, 8th on the weekend. This should be a spot where there is a lot of scoring, and I will throw it to Davis. I think we're up to Davis going first.
Davis,
Yep. I'm assuming you like some players from this game, Davis. Who do you like?
Yeah, this is the best game of the slate. If I could only play one lineup, it would be Kyler and McBride. Don't think you have to play Goff. You certainly can. I mean, Goff threw 55 passes last week. We're thrown off the scent of Arizona's defense being ass a little bit because the Rams just gave up.
Mm-hmm.
But the Rams were like pretty close to making that a game, actually. They drove down the field. They got a touchdown. Then they drove down the field again. Then they chose to go for it after Kupp hurt his ankle, didn't get the touchdown. If let's just say alternate reality Kupp doesn't hurt his ankle there, they get the touchdown there, then they get the ball back and Kupp is healthy. I mean, that game could have been 38-35. Like that could have been Rams Chiefs part 2. It could have gone. The Cardinals defense is really bad. They can't get any push on defense. The other thing is that makes this game so awesome is Detroit you cannot run on Detroit. Dan Campbell is like, do whatever you want to me. You are not running on me. You are not going to bully me in the trenches. Like he's like one of the few defensive guys who's still selling out against the run. I think we saw that on Godwin's touchdown. Like Godwin literally uncovered on a touchdown because they had 8 guys in the box. Like how many guys have 8? How many teams are going to play 8 guys in the box? Like ever? Just is not really going to happen. St. Brown, Laporta, they're all plays. They're all like JMO. They're all good plays.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like just, I don't know how many you want to play in one lineup. Like what would be the max number of Lions you would play in one lineup with Goff and without Goff? Let me throw that to you, Davis, before we get past takes.
With Goff, so I was running some sim stuff last week, and I don't know if this is directionally accurate or not, but actually, like I was running it with Purdy last week, and Purdy lineups with Purdy, Mason, Debo, and Kittle had the highest sim ROI of any team that I found. Now, the cash rate is way lower. You're going to cash fewer of those teams, but your first percentile outcomes or 99th percentile outcomes are according to the sims like much higher. So maybe 3. I don't in practice. I honestly can't say I would ever do it, but I would do something like Kyler, McBride, Gibbs, JMO. I could totally see that hitting.
I could absolutely see that hitting. Yeah. I mean, first of all, Jameson Williams does not need that many targets. He's actually getting targeted, but he doesn't need 5. That many. Yeah, get there on 5. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I would push back on the idea that you can't run on the Lions. They rank 20th in run stop win rate per ESPN. They're 17th in rushing success rate against, 15th in EPL per rush. So they've been okay, but they went against the Rams, who have not been good on offense, and then they went against the Bucs, who haven't been able to run anybody for like 3 years. So yeah, I mean, this will be a test because I think the Cardinals have shown that they do want to run the ball. They've got a -4% pass rate over expected. They try to get Connor going early against the Bills. So James Conner, I think, is actually pretty interesting. It's kind of going against what we saw last week with them lighting everyone up through the air, and goes against the Lions being a really good run defense. I think they're probably fine.
Yeah, I think James Conner, to me, is a large field tournament play, included him as a potential play. What do you guys think of Sam Laporta? I just, as far as like, he hasn't really done anything yet this year, but had, one of the best rookie tight end seasons we've ever seen last year. Now he's coming in at virtually zero ownership. Feels like a solid leverage play on all of the other chalkier Lions. I think I'm kind of galbraining myself into playing some Sam Laporta. And any pushback on that idea?
The thing I struggle with is that I think it probably, like, you've got McBride for 200 more.
Yeah.
And then you've got Bowers for less. So it's like he's still very expensive relative to the other options. And I do think that the Jamison Williams emergence hurt his ability to just rack up targets in any given game, because he's also got to deal with Amon-Ra, who's, that's his whole thing. So I think you're kind of betting more that this is the game where he gets in the end zone. Which it certainly could be. Like, I think this could be a get right spot for the Lions offense. I do like the Lions here, but at that salary, it's tricky for me.
That's part of the reason, though, is that like he's getting squeezed on both ends. So like nobody wants to play him, and it's like he's playing against the Cardinals. Like, this should be a smash spot for him in theory. So that's part of the reason I'm like, man, if everybody's going to be playing Bowers, everybody is more inclined to go to McBride. I mean, Laporta was the top tight end drafted in hot best ball summer. Like, this was a guy that coming into the year. Now I understand
not by Sharps, buddy.
I didn't draft a ton of.
Yeah, but we were Kelsey. That was any better.
Yeah, Sharps taking Kelsey, clearly.
Hey, he gets a dome game on Monday. Settle down, partner.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, there's some ownership where you're like, I don't know, like, does this hold? This one holds. You're 100% right, Neil. Like, no one's going to play Laporta. So from that perspective, it is pretty interesting.
Yeah. Any other notes on this game? I like Kyler. I like Goff. I think this is a game where both quarterbacks are very much in play. We've talked about both tight ends, I think, are in play. The running backs we've talked about. David Montgomery, another one that I'm like, sort of like it just as a leverage play on the field. I don't like it quite as much as
David
Laporta.
Montgomery. If you're playing David Montgomery in a tournament team, go to your sports book of choice and just do every under game, under passing yards, under, and just be like, when everyone else is miserable and tilting, I'm just gonna be like, David Montgomery got 23 rushes for 138 yards and 2 tuds, and everyone else is mad, and I'm rich.
Yes, that is a good idea. All right. Marvin Harrison, are we going back to the Marvin Harrison well at all?
I mean, I'm not as hot for him as I was last week. He's fine, but
the ownership will come up. The matchup isn't as good. Yeah.
Last week was the spot.
Yeah, I agree.
Niners at Rams. Niners have an implied team total of 25.75, fourth on the weekend. Rams 18.75, tied for 24th on the weekend. So not looking so hot without any offensive linemen or their star receivers. But we know we want to play at least players from the Niners side of the game. We can throw at any Rams players you might want as well. Pat, we can start with you. Who do you have interest in this Niners Rams game?
Well, and just how out of control does the Ayuk stuff get? Because that's, we talked Godwin, we talked to Olave, we talked Devontae Smith, guys in this similar price range. Ayuk actually the cheapest of all of them, and I mean I'm like wondering if what we're estimating right now ownership wise is light, because Kittle isn't ruled out yet. So once he is, does that come up a little bit more, and Zeke just kind of gets steamed throughout the weekend? But Ayuk is in for a lot of volume. I mean, and then I guess part of the question is, do people play Ayuk and Mason together if Ayuk ends up being mega chalk? But those two obviously jump out as just being in awesome spots. So yeah, I don't know. How are you guys thinking through those two chalk pieces?
I'm just jamming Mason. Ayuk, I'm more like Ayuk has paths to failure to me because he's not playing very well. Like he admitted he's not playing very well. Like he was like, yeah, we watched the film on Monday and I was ass. So, you know, maybe he's just not in shape or whatever. Like obviously I'll be playing. I mean, I'm just going to play Ayuk. I'm going to do what the computer says more or less. But Mason, I mean, literally, how does Mason fail? I guess the 49ers find a way to lose this game. Like McVay dives so deep into his bag of tricks. I don't know, man. It just feels like
Shanahan's
Mason
got McVay's number, right? Isn't that the whole thing?
That's the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mason, I guess to be fair, Mason like literally did almost fail last week. He scored a touchdown and got to exactly 100 yards. So he got the bonus, but I mean, I'm going right back to the well.
This is a different defense he's facing. That's a tough Vikings defense. This is against the Rams. I'm with you. Hard for that to fail. Ayuk. So just for reference, I looked up one respected industry source that does have George Kittle taken out. They have Ayuk projected for 31% ownership. So, which feels about right to me. Like that seems probably about what we can expect for Ayuk. Davis, of course, a famous Debo over Ayuk guy, an Ayuk hater to his core. Pat,
it just feels so good to be right, man. You know.
Well, I mean, enjoy it this week because
enjoy it. I get to enjoy that for about 48 more hours before Ayuk is slamming it down my throat.
Yep, exactly.
40 burger. Yeah, I mean, the ceiling here is exciting. All the knocks on Ayuk are that, you know, he can't consolidate targets and, you know, they're not going to throw enough and all that. But like, the matchup's great, and there's all of a sudden there isn't that much target competition. So I don't know. I think he probably gets pretty. Like I think I would take the over on 31%.
Yeah, I think I probably would too. I mean, the matchup is just so good. This is just like it's a Coors Field type matchup, similar to like the Commanders. Like there aren't that many teams where it's just like, yeah, I want to play players against them all the time. Now you get all of his star teammates out. It just feels like a spot where people are going to want to jam Ayuk. What about any of the like Jawan Jennings, any other Niners that we want to play now that Kittle is probably going to miss the game? Debo's out, McCaffrey's out. Are we going to any Jawan Jennings?
I think Jennings is kind of interesting. He's been efficient. Some of that's a good yard per target. But like, you know, some of the underlying metrics for him are not good, but he's now going to be such a bigger part of the game plan coming in. And we know that's like a real thing with Shanahan, where he game plans specifically for certain guys and certain matchups. And Jennings is a very solid player for them for a while. And, you know, he's their slot. So that's probably, I don't like, does he end up running a full slate of routes even without, you know, Debo and Kittle and everything? He's probably still like in the high 70s or something because he doesn't play outside a ton. But I do think that he'll be a part of what they're trying to do through the air, and he's cheap enough. And then maybe, you know, if you don't play him as part of a stack, if he's just kind of a one-off piece for you, it's potential leverage against two other pieces.
Yeah. Davis, thoughts on any other tertiary options on the Niners?
You just need Jawan Jennings to throw a touchdown, and then it's
not to Ayuk though.
Is that what it was in the Super Bowl? Interesting.
He threw it to McCaffrey. I would really like for Jacob Cowing for them to just be like, Jacob Cowing's starting, dude. We're gonna see what we have in this guy. It's not gonna. He's gonna play like 9 snaps. He's gonna be Xavier Gibson. But it would be fun. The answer is
like Chris Conley. I think is more the outside guy.
Yeah. It's gonna end up not being a very fun game because the Rams just have nothing. Like the Rams have a junior varsity offensive line. They're down their top 2 wide receivers. Every drive is going to start off with a -1 yard Kyren Williams rush. And so it's going to be second and long. What I will say is that Kyren has roughly the same projection as all these other guys who are really strong plays. and he's gonna not be owned. I've been clicking Kyren Williams and like the battle royale stuff on Underdog, and I will, if I make 5 teams, I'll probably do Kyren on 1. That's my degree of conviction.
I'm with you on Kyren. This Niners defense hasn't been as good as we're used to. It's early, but I guess I'm not like I'm more terrified about who the Rams are than about who the Niners are. I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's interesting. To the Jennings stuff and the Ayuk side, Ayuk does feel like, in this game in general, like if the Rams aren't able to push back, like doesn't he feel very 6 for 90 kind of day? Like we could be.
Yep.
Yeah, I may end up playing, but I wouldn't mind if he ends up coming in like real chalky.
I've seen some real hot projections on Demarcus Robinson, to which I will say, learn ball, friends.
I hope Demarcus. That's my real dream this weekend, is that Demarcus Robinson jams it down.
He can definitely. He can definitely get there. Like on like he scored. I mean,
this clip with the learn ball. Yeah,
he had his best. Do you know, Neil? Do you know his best ever career game?
It's probably last year. Probably put up 14.8 fantasy points.
No, it's when he was a Chief. He had 4 targets, 4 receptions for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns.
That's a good play.
I'll take that. His quarterback was Pat Mahomes.
Did he do that in week 1 in honor of Sammy Watkins?
Right.
I believe it was week 4. It was against the Raiders. Okay. Tyler Johnson is actually the one who is going to earn targets, or Whittington,
I think.
So there's been this scuttlebutt, like, oh, he played all the Cooper Kupp snaps. I'm like, the idea that Jordan Whittington, this like non-prospect from Texas, is Cooper Kupp, is now Cooper Kupp. It's like, I don't know if that's saying what you think it's saying. I think that's saying SOS on the Rams season.
Yeah, take the 49ers is what that says.
I think that's saying Matt Stafford contemplating retirement by week 4 is what that is saying to me. Yeah. But one of these guys
start a podcast.
One of these guys could totally get 10 targets. I've got a very low degree of conviction in any of them, though.
Same. Feel the same way. Tyler Johnson was kind of phased out last week. He was the guy that I was all in on last week, and like didn't run nearly as many routes in the second half.
He did. But when they gave up, he went to the bench, and Whittington and 2.
Oh, you think? Okay. I was going to say, because Whittington 100% of snaps or of routes in the second half last week. So yeah, you think it was just a matter of, that's interesting. Okay, so then maybe Tyler Johnson is more in play.
Tyler Johnson came off.
Yeah. All right, that's a good context note there. Colby Parkinson, I guess, also I think is in play as a weak tight end slate. Let us down last week, but second among active Rams in route participation at 80.7% on the year. Third in targets with 7. I think as a tight end, I think he seems fine on a depleted team. Could see some targets when they're just throwing short, trying to find somebody pick up a couple yards. Yeah, I think no other notes here for me on this game. Ravens at Cowboys. Ravens have an implied team total of 24.75. That's the 7th best on the weekend. Cowboys implied team total 23.75, 10th best on the weekend. Pat, I'll just throw it right to you. How much interest you have in any players in this game?
I'm pretty interested in CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I know he's very expensive, but he could just absolutely blow up in this game. The walkthrough cover boys I try to keep it to someone from the 1 o'clock window so I can have that be the first game, and it's just nice and clean. But I really thought hard about making it CeeDee Lamb. I just think he's set up for a really nice spot here. He's going to get double teamed, but he's been double teamed nonstop this year anyway, so that's not a huge concern to me. And you're going up against a Ravens defense that has not just been bad against the pass. They have been quite bad against the pass, but it's not just that. It's the teams are attacking them through the air. You've got the Raiders shifting to the pass against you. You might be a pass funnel. So this is a spot I think where we could get the Cowboys offense clicking because Dak's taking sacks right now. and he's not been very efficient on his downfield throws, but he is attempting downfield passes. He's got an 8 ADOT. He's not been super conservative. It's just that he hasn't been very efficient on those throws. Well, now he gets a Ravens defense that's allowing explosive passes at the second highest rate, that ranks 30th against dropbacks and success rate. They also are 29th in time to pressure, the 27th in pressure rate. So the sack issue could get better, and the downfield efficiency could get better. And we know CeeDee Lamb is an absolute star. So I like this as, a week winning type of upside performance for CeeDee Lamb.
Any Ferguson interest for you?
Yeah, I think Ferguson is in play for
I think
sure.
he might be the most owned tight end when we get to Sunday.
Oh, do you really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
He is so he's slightly cheaper than that whole range. He's 4,500, and he's going to come in with a pretty rich projection because Cooks and Tolbert kind of swapped who got the targets weeks 1 and week 2. Like, you just do your projections, like, 19% of the targets for Jake Ferguson. They have a healthy team total. The Ravens' bad passing defense, weirdly, through 2 weeks. Like, they just let Bowers eat them up. I think that's right. I think that is how it's going to go.
Right.
Is,
I mean, he's cheap.
Yeah, he definitely could be right. Yeah.
We want. Yeah, I think the stuff with Bowers is that he's just more expensive than you really want to be going to. So
yeah,
you're probably right about that. But honestly, that'd be all the more reason to me to go to Lamb. I don't think people are going to prioritize Lamb, and he's expensive, so you're just going to get to him naturally. And if everyone's on Ferguson, I don't know if we get Dak stacks here because he's expensive and hasn't been good. So
yeah, could be. Yeah, didn't quite get there last week the way we needed to. Maybe a little bit of a bounce back spot for the Cowboys at reduced ownership. The other side of the game, we have, Lamar Jackson. We had Derek Carr just go off last week against this Cowboys defense, so it's definitely possible. Do you have any interest in Lamar Jackson or any Ravens, Pat?
Yeah, I think this could be a good spot for Lamar Jackson. I talked in the walkthrough about how they are also struggling in terms of the first reads. Like, this is very clearly an offense that's getting disrupted because no one in the offense has a high first read target rate, which means those targets aren't like happening. Like he's either having to move off or scramble or get sacked. Like it's not actually.
Have you ever checked if those numbers are weirder for running quarterbacks? I wonder.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I wonder if just in general, like Kyler maybe has low first read, like just in general, if guys who move around a lot.
Historically had a really low first read. I have looked at the guys that are like the very highest. Like Purdy has had stretches where he's super high. Like the point and shoot guys can be pretty high. Fields is usually pretty low, but I think it's a combination of the ability to scramble, but also not execute an offense. And Lamar can execute an offense, but I think has been kind of stifled through 2 weeks. We especially saw that in the Chiefs game. He was constantly having to scramble around. I think a lot of that Isaiah Likely stuff was like him finding another option. So I think this Ravens passing offense is interesting because we may not have seen what they want to be yet. And I don't know. So for that reason, what do you guys think about Mark Andrews at 4,800?
He's like the play of the slate, I think.
Going to get lost in the shuffle. Yeah. I don't hate that.
I think that's pretty fun. It's kind of the DJ Moore type of thing where you're like, the offense clicks. They're going to get the ball to this guy that we know they want to get the ball to, but they haven't been able to so far, and his numbers look bad. But it would just be very natural for Andrews to benefit from a resurgent passing game.
I did see an incredibly bearish YouTube comment earlier today, and I didn't fact check this, so if it's wrong, blame the YouTube commenter who lied to me. the YouTube commenter said he's already done more pass blocking snaps this year than he did in all of 2023.
I would buy that because his route participation's down by almost, I think it's down by about 8% ish. So yeah,
let me see if I can look it up real quick on PFF. It's definitely it's not good. Like regardless, it's not been
Davis,
good.
he has historically not pass blocked at all.
At all.
So that is one of those stats where we might be talking about he is at 8 pass blocking snaps and he had 6 all of last year or 7 all last year.
He has 7. He has 7 this year.
Yeah. So
and 2023, he had 7. Yeah, it is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
I mean, it
you
honestly
don't need
says
to
how
fact
good
check
his role
YouTube
was.
commenters. Yeah,
Right.
true.
His role has historically been amazing, and now it's not amazing. But it's still pretty good.
In 2022, he had 1 pass blocking snap.
Yeah, that's the year.
insane.
I wrote him up that year as like, wow. But his double coverage rate is 38% this year. That's 96th percentile among tight ends. Last season, he was at 16%. So we're talking about more than twice as much double coverage compared to what he faced last year. And the Cowboys have not been doubling at a high rate this season. Maybe everyone's going to double Andrews now. Maybe everyone's decided that's how you beat the Ravens. But teams tend to like operate how they operate. So I don't know. I mean, I think it gives me, it's another reason for optimism of like maybe this defense doesn't focus entirely on taking Andrews away, and an offense that hasn't really been able to express what it's trying to do, as evidenced by the fact that they're not getting many first read targets actually out on the field. Maybe what they've been trying to do is get Andrews the ball.
I like it. That's totally. I mean, that was like my Laporta. Like I'm going to get Laporta getting squeezed, low ownership. I think Andrews, you're right, is the exact same thing, going to come in at very low ownership because of his price relative to the players who want to jam. So I like that call out. Davis, any other Zay Flowers, Lamar Jackson? Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting thing where that game that they just played against the Raiders is being treated as like a loss, like terrible effort, but they were winning the whole time. Like the game state was that they were winning the whole time. So Lamar didn't really run. Lamar ran 16 times in week 1 because they were trailing the whole time. The Cowboys are going to put up, much more of a game long fight, in my opinion, than the Raiders. I wonder if the dichotomy is basically the team is losing. Lamar's going to take off whenever he feels like. If the team is winning, he's handing it off to Derrick Henry. That feels as simple as it gets. And, yeah, I think Lamar at like gigalow ownership, because there's Hurts, he's expensive, there's Stroud. Like, it feels like Lamar to me, this feels like a vintage. You don't have Lamar and Andrews, you're checking your best ball teams to see how you're doing type week.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, can we fit because we talked about the Houston stack. We're foregoing Akers. Could we do Lamar, Andrews, Lamb, and then go eat that Akers chalk? Because that's not going to be popular, Lamar, Andrews, Lamb.
Yeah, that's a good call. I like it. I wasn't super into this game, but the more we talk about it, I think you guys have convinced me that, yeah, this, like, you just look at it, it's like, this obviously could go off. These are two pretty strong offenses. Like this seems more obvious the more we talk about it, as like, yeah, nobody's going to play it. Wouldn't be that shocking at all if this game does go off. So I'm glad we talked about this, because I think you're right. This could be a very strong game. And, the total on the game, 48.5. So it's not like it's a low total would be that shocking. Yeah.
And both teams have pretty high implied team totals. Like it's
right.
One of those games where they could really push each other.
Yeah. So that is the end of the DraftKings slate. We do have the FanDuel game. We can just do this one super quickly. Mahomes 8,700 on FanDuel. Rashee Rice 7,300. We got Xavier Worthy at 6,000. Carson Steele's 5,200. He's the running back that I wrote up. I guess Davis, if you're playing one running back from the Chiefs, they did say Kareem Hunt not playing this week, so I guess it does come down to just Samaje Perine, Carson Steele. What's your level of interest in those, or you can talk about the game in general if there's plays that you have interest in here on FanDuel.
It really does change the complexity of the slate having this on FanDuel, because like Mahomes seems really good. Rashee Rice seems like dude, is he gonna catch like 105 passes this year? Like, probably.
Deep, man. Like, yeah. I thought he was just supposed to be an underneath scan.
Yeah, what happened here? Yeah,
I think he might just be good, man. I think he might be good,
man. I would leave the light on for Sky Moore still to maybe take that role eventually.
Yeah, right. At some point.
One of my takes is that the combination of, okay, now we know we're not getting Hollywood back and Pacheco is out, means like it's time to just start putting it on Worthy's plate now, because he's got to be ready for the playoffs. Like, 34-year-old Kelsey and Rashee Rice not going to get it done, at Buffalo. So let's start doing it right now. I mean, Worthy is like, it's gonna be hard to play him right now. He's kind of he's too like DraftKings and FanDuel can't move his salary low, because then everyone would jam him. But he's not going to project that well at a median, but he feels pretty strong. Right. And, Kelsey, Pitts.
Where are you at on Kelsey? Yeah.
I'm actually not worried. Sam, our buddy Sam, did a good little thread the other day about watching Kelsey, and I had the same conclusions he did, which is, he might not have that much gas left in the tank, but once he gets going, there's really no one better. There really is no one better at the finding the soft spot in the zone.
And pretending to pitch it.
Dude, that play, isn't that the quintessential Chiefs experience? Coverage breaks down. Mahomes gets out of the pocket. He finds Kelsey. Yeah. Kelsey's somehow lumbering like an ant through the middle of the field, and somehow no one can bring him down. Kelsey's looking to lateral it, and then there's a penalty. Like that is just the modern Chiefs experience.
Dude, I could watch that on the dots and go, that's the Chiefs. That's Mahomes to Kelsey right there. On the dots, I could tell.
And that dude, like, these guys are like, Kelsey could play until he's 40, and catch 60 passes a year. Just the way he. Now, I'm not saying he's going to have 1,000 yards this year, although I think he probably will. I'm not really worried. I think Kelsey. I'm more worried about Pitts on the other side of this game, but just being like, well, the route participation shaved back. Turns out we were just wrong, and Kyle Pitts was never that good to begin with. And Kirk Cousins only looks like himself when he can't talk to his coach, when the coach literally can't say anything in his ears because it's inside 2 minutes.
I'm very worried. I'm very worried about Pitts as somebody who drafted a ton of Pitts in best ball. That is not working out so far, and I'm not sure that it will. The Chiefs, one thing I did note in my article, they've given up huge games back-to-back weeks, 2 tight ends. It was Isaiah Likely week 1. I think that was probably just because they were so focused on Mark Andrews. So I don't know how much to read into that. But then Mike Gesicki last week also had a very nice game against the Chiefs. Are tight ends against the Chiefs, is that going to be a thing?
Not this week.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
That's probably fair. Yeah.
I think the Chiefs will give you on defense whatever you don't want.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate.
So maybe it is a Kyle
so it is Pitts.
Week.
Yeah. Clearly, this is a Pitts week. Yeah. That could be good call out there.
Oh no.
Like Mike Gesicki is just like running uncovered because no one's cared about Mike Gesicki in 5 years.
Yeah.
Mike Gesicki, Kyle Pitts, who would you rather have in a 12-team PPR league?
He'll be interesting on a 1-year contract on the Bengals in 4 years for sure.
Dude, Kyle Pitts is so 1 year, $5 million to the Bengals. It's painful. He's Irv Smith.
He's Irv Smith. Oh, yeah, he's Irv Smith, dude. He's the Irv Smith of Ladarius Greens.
No, dude. He is. Oh God, what is he? Kyle Pitts is the Jimmy Graham of Ladarius Greens.
You're right. You're right. That's right.
He had the 1,000-yard season. He mattered, but then it went away quick.
We went away quick.
I'm still shook. Neil, one of the Ship Chaser commenters said this yesterday, and I can't get it out of my head, that Garrett Wilson is the Kyle Pitts of Justin Jefferson's. It's so stunningly accurate.
I know.
I cannot follow this meme. I see this meme. You guys do this meme on Twitter. I read it. Sam does it constantly.
Are you too old to get?
This meme is above my head.
Stopped you in my tracks.
This player is this player of this player's. I'm like, I don't follow that. This doesn't
break it
track.
down. Break it down.
I don't get it.
I'm going to break it down structurally for you.
Okay.
So this is the equation. Player is the style comp of the role comp. So it's player X, the style comp is Y, and the role comp is Z.
Okay.
Yeah, or I also look sort of like the broad archetype is Z, is the second one.
Role archetype, whatever you'd like to call it.
So he's the Kyle Pitts, a guy we've hyped for too long, of an actual really good receiver.
Of an actual really good player.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm starting to track now. Okay. I think I track this meme.
Some people just don't get it. I've obviously people comment these in my YouTube videos all day, and it's just painfully clear who gets it and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's either you get it or you don't.
There's some fun ones though. I mean, the Kyle Pitts one is about it's both fun and concerning.
I think I might be too dumb for this meme, but I'm going to keep trying to work on it. I think after, since you give me the equation now, maybe I'll figure out how to do the meme. I'll try it. Maybe I'll try it next week. You can give me feedback.
There's a practice. Davis issues a practice book that he can.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. I'll do
like an AP style book, but for memes.
That would be helpful. All right. We made it through the entire slate. We did the game by game. I enjoyed doing this. I know I have a lot of content coming out for the rest of the weekend. I'm sure you guys do as well. I'll throw it to you, Davis, first. What do you have coming up this weekend?
I've got all of my premium stuff over on patreon.com/DavisMattic. I'll be live on Sunday morning for like 3 hours on my YouTube channel, answering start sits, running the Sims, doing all that stuff, and a bunch of videos this week for different things about week 3 on my YouTube channel as well.
Very nice. And Pat, how about you?
LegendaryUpside.com. I've got the walkthrough, game by game breakdown of all the Sunday main slate games over on DraftKings. Not a DFS specific article, but one where I'm trying to figure out what I just think is going to happen in the games, but I think very applicable to DFS, redraft, whatever you're looking to do. I also narrate that article on a premium podcast feed for subscribers. Only $10 a month over there, so check that out. We also will have Matt Irby's Quick Slant on the Sunday night game, the 2 Monday night games. We'll be covering those. So yeah, a lot of great content. We also have weekly rankings, rest of season rankings, waiver wire, all that good stuff. So legendaryupside.com, check it out.
Very nice. A lot of good stuff. I have my 4for4 game by game breakdown for GPPs is already out. You can find that on 4for4. Also working on a cash game article, going to have to reformat. There have been some injury news that are going to affect things there, but that should be out soon as well after I'm done with that. So if you're playing cash games, look for that on 4for4. And then, of course, my own YouTube channel, The Flaniverse. I only do showdown content. So I'll be doing a Sunday night prior to the Sunday Night Football. I'll do a showdown breakdown of that game. And then Monday, I do a morning show with Adam Scher, and then an evening show on my own. Same thing Thursday. So you can find those on my Flaniverse YouTube channel if you want to check that out. Otherwise, we will be back here next week, probably do game by game again. I thought this was a more consistent, easier format, going game by game than position by position. So probably do the same thing again. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. Let us know if you enjoyed it. Please do like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all that good stuff as well. Thank you, and we will see you next week.